We are minutes away from launching an almost brand new T.Rex holster. So how did we get to this point? But hang on, some of you are saying at this point, we're launching the Raptor holster. That's not a new product. We used to make these things, this one, 7 years ago. It's one of the older T.Rex products. So how big of a deal is it to just relaunch an existing product? Well, obviously we wanted to do more than just bring this thing back. We wanted to make improvements, which begs a sort of philosophical question. How much do you need to upgrade a product to justify relaunching it as an upgraded version? And that's what I want to talk to Isaac Rodriguez and Joe about. When this holster was made, back then, Isaac Rodriguez was making these blue guns, which we used for old school holster production on the foam presses. And then Josiah was cutting them out on bandsaws. That was how all low volume production was done. And we were just experimenting with high volume production. This is one of the first things that we made on CNC machines, those original shop bots. And as you can see, it has a pretty ancient light on there. And you can also see that I felt the need to add a Ranger band to get better retention on that light. Clearly, there was some room for improvement on this holster back then, but also today. For a long time, the Raptor was the oldest holster that we had in the shop, on the site. And we worked together on the Raptor 2.0 for a good long time, and then set it aside and made Sidecar 2.0 instead. And Sidecar 2.0 was obviously a higher priority. But in addition to that, Sidecar 2.0 can be basically a Raptor, and it can do a lot of the stuff that we want to do with the Raptor. It has 2 tuckable clips for stability. That was what these holes were for. And you can adjust the cant by moving the clips up and down. That was what the slots were for. So it accomplished a lot of the goals of Raptor 2.0 when we did Sidecar 2.0. So that explains why we stopped development on this.
I think a lot of it comes down to the original Raptor, and it was a great product because it was simple. Like, you could take it in and out really quickly. Did the job really well. But there were some shortcomings that we recognized, and we're trying to solve those shortcomings, and that's what you were working on. But then we came along, like you mentioned, with the Sidecar, and we realized that does the job pretty well, right? You've got height adjustment, you've got more of the balance. Like, one of the issues that we had with the original was the single quick clip had only one point of contact with your belt. And when you've got several pounds of firearm and you've got the leverage that the grip has and the movement of the body,
we want to spread it out.
Exactly, right. There was, you know, the claw could come out of the belt, and you've lost your concealment, that kind of thing. And so the Sidecar really checked all the boxes, and we're like, hey, we've got this product that we're ready to launch. It's got the features that we need. This will do the job. Yeah,
but we are going to launch a Raptor.
Yes.
Not this Raptor 2.0 that we put a lot of time and effort into, but this Raptor 2.0, which has a lot in common. There is a way to mount 2 tuckable clips on here. There is a slot so that if you go with not this quick clip, but this monoblock to rotate it, it has a number of the goals, but we're accomplishing them in slightly different ways. So what changed? What made this better than this, or better enough than this, that it was worth selling?
An auto tool changer. It's one of the big ones.
We did two major changes in between these 2 prototyping cycles. One, we updated to a thicker Kydex. And number 2, the Haas machine with the auto tool changer means we can cut with a cutting bit and drill with a drilling bit. We can drill smaller holes, so you can't pull the hardware through. The thicker Kydex holds up better. So, and those were not really planned with this in mind.
Not with this in mind,
But as soon as we realized we actually had every piece to solve some of these problems. There's another thing that we experimented with. Can you explain this hand-sculpted clay epoxy?
This is the development method that we used to have back in the day. So we just mix the putty or the clay and stick it in there and have a whole new holster. But yeah,
so smooth, like Michelangelo himself.
Yeah, exactly. Except this idea came from David, one of the Davids around here.
David Botkin is the CFO, but he's also the brains of the operation in other areas. The number of times that he's come back here and been like, hey, have you guys ever thought about...
He's the number one comfort advocate. He was like, hey, can we make this holster more comfortable? Because we've got these pressure points. Can we distribute those across the back of the holster? And we're like, duh, yeah, that's a really good idea. And so we experimented with this. This is the back of the holster. We've distributed the pressure, making it a lot more comfortable. And I think for that purpose, it worked. But then we ran into some issues with fit at that point, making sure that we have contact with the gun.
Yeah, we weren't able to grab the gun as securely. We had good grabbing points on the front without the grabbing points on the back. But that is another thing that we solved, not with Raptor 2.0, but with Ironside.
Yes.
We solved that issue of maintaining good retention and
the best of both worlds. We basically have good fitment on the holster and the security that we want there, and then we've got this comfort add-on that somebody can add if they want that. And we had a lot of customers that really loved the original Raptor. It's just so simple. It got the job done well. It was slimmer than our sidecar. The sidecar is very stable, but it's a little bit wide. And if you don't need all the features that the sidecar gives, then the Raptor makes a lot of sense. So the new Raptor just gives you both. It gives you that stability that you want, which we think is really important for concealment, making sure that your firearm stays in the same place every single time for a good draw. But then you've still got that slim profile. It's just easy to take in and out, especially with the monoblock.
Yeah. Do you miss the old days where we lacked precision and some precision tools, but we really quickly slapped stuff together and we were able to get our hands dirty and prototype sloppy stuff really fast?
In a sense, I do. I think the benefit back then was that you could get the design concept quickly. You know, you could validate that design concept very quickly. It's just what we did right here. This probably took, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes to get this done. The problem is repeatability manufacturing.
Exactly.
Without that precision, you can't get it out there and make it the same every single time.
Right.
We're not going to putty every single mold that we make in production, which is where the beauty of the precision that we have now brings to that, so we can make the same holster the same way every single time.
Yes. It is interesting to see just how much improved everything on our process from the cutting. Now, admittedly, this is a prototype where I did not try to make it super nice, but the definition and the cutting and everything is just massively improved between the 5 years. I think there's 5 years between these two holsters. But that brings up an excellent point. Before we can launch a holster, not only does the design have to be superior to what came before in a significant way, the ability to make the holster has to be there. That has to be fully sorted. What magic did you do on top of these original experiments from the original Raptor prototypes to this?
Yeah. So the real thing that came down to was really identifying, you know, what problem we were trying to solve. So yeah, like we talked about, or Isaac talked about earlier, the only thing this really solved over the sidecar or had was the quick clip. And we already at that point, the quick clip we had as an option was just not something we were in love with. We had breakage issues with it, and one point of contact on it's just not great. So monoblock came along and became more of an industry standard, and we think it's a much better option. So that's one reason it was worth actually bringing another option to the table. So that was a big push. But the real big one was the technology difference that we were able to achieve when we redesigned everything. So beforehand, everything was still made around blue guns. Like the Kydex here, and here on a blue gun system is not as controlled. And we're able to really control that and do weird things with it now because we're actually able to build more angles into our molds. At this point, we're dealing with small increments that make a big difference. Is we're able to put this little block here, which again gives you 2 points of contact on here. So if one fails, the other doesn't. And that actually pushes the belt in past your click, giving you extra security, especially when your gun is rotated and everything. And then this, since it's flat to your body, then pushes, again, is giving you that natural, where the belt is actually working with the gun to actually push you in. Same thing over here, this clip is rotated. Now some other companies do this as well, but rotating this clip allows you that once you've rotated your gun, this edge of the clip doesn't print as much, which can be a thing when this is mounted on your side channel. Ironside, we played around with offsetting and then doing a little bit of tilt into the body to increase the comfort and concealment at 4 o'clock, which worked really, really well. And so once we learned that, we're like, okay, how do we apply this to the other things that we do?
So you kind of brought all of the lessons learned from the melt back tests, plus the ergonomic lessons from the iron side.
Yep.
It's like 6 years from making a Raptor on a CNC machine. This is one of the first ones we made back when the APL was the light.
Whew, the good old days.
The APL was the light. Some of the brightest 200 lumens you ever saw.
Yeah, it was hot stuff.
6 years from that to a prototype that is awesome and we love it, as opposed to this one where we loved all the ideas. We loved this prototype. How do we make this into a launchable, producible product? So a question for you, Brantley. Before we start making all the molds, which we have to make, the product has to be tested as a concept. The Raptor itself. What does that look like exactly? Pretend I don't know.
So basic standards is going to be gun fitment, first of all.
Yep.
We're going to make sure we hit our standards of performance, of making sure we can get a full firing grip, covers all the trigger guard in most cases. Now there's some exclusions to that, large body lights such as like TLR1s, it's kind of hard to cover the trigger guard.
Yep. Especially on them skinny guns.
Yes, definitely. So making sure you get firing grip, safety features, repeatability, consistency. And then once all that is good, then we'll actually do several range days, or a range day with the holsters, making sure that, hey, nothing is weird about it. You can draw from it. And in the case of the Raptor especially, it's going to be a multi-use holster. So it's either going to be appendix or 4 o'clock. And so we test it from both positions, standing, sitting, kneeling, laying down, running, and just making sure that everything's kosher with it. Nothing's going to be just weird with it. You just don't see things that just like shouldn't be a thing, but are a thing with certain holsters. We've come into issues with that, and that's a good way to kind of catch them before they meet to the customer.
Yeah. So we got a ton of testing on Raptor 2.0.
Yeah.
1.8, 1.85, 1.9. We were confident this was good. Now, making it production ready.
Yeah. So you have like, you develop the concept in a bucket, right? So you develop a singular model or whatever.
Yeah.
You get that dialed in. And for us, because Glock is so popular in
it's always
most
Glocks.
of sales, you end up just going with, you start out with Glock. And also, most of our prototypers use Glock, so it's easier to get people to test it. You can actually hand it off and say, you know what, all the designers, let's just run with this. We need to actually make the largest, the smallest, the biggest light, the smallest light. All of these outliers can say, okay, if I apply the same design parameters to all of these, do they all work?
Yeah.
And things change during that. You'll tweak things a little bit. You'll change your angles a little bit.
You'll discover,
That's why it's 7.5 degrees. It's because there was a few models that 10 degrees wouldn't work with, and 5 degrees wasn't enough. And so
very big
7.5
guns
worked.
with very big lights, 10 degrees was too much.
Yep. And so like it's those fine dialing in of all of those outliers. And then you have your complete package that you can kind of sign off on.
Yeah.
And at that point, we'll get the design. Basically, it's locked in. We've got all the feedback from our testers. We've given it out. We have a beta program that we use. We give it out. They run it.
Yeah.
Get the feedback. And it's like, all right, we're good to go. And at that point, we can actually hand it off to our designers and say, let's start cranking these suckers out.
We are launching with a wide range of bases covered, which means we're making a lot of Raptor molds.
Yes.
We're launching with a lot of Raptor molds, which Santa talked about. But every mold also makes a bunch of different cut paths for different slide lengths and different types of gun that might fit in the same mold. So how many cut paths are we spitting out?
Oh goodness. So in the example of a Glock, let's say, we have our Glock 26, 19, 17, and 34. That's 4 right there. Well, then you have all your threaded options. So then you have your 26 threaded, your 19 threaded, and your 17 threaded. So then that bumps it up to math.
Stop asking us for 34 threaded. Go
Yes, no, 34 is not threaded. That's just too long. That's 7 cut paths right there. That's your right hand. Same thing for your left hand. So that's 14 cut paths just on one exact mold. Not to mention that we have, I don't even know how many molds for Raptors we have.
And there's 3 lights for each.
Exactly. Yep. And then you have the non-light version.
And then you have some of the smaller guns have a different number of lights, so it gets confusing.
Yep.
But
then you have your XSC, you have your TLR7 sub, you have your TLR6s in some case.
It's a
you
very
have Glocks
interesting-
with rails, Glock with no rails.
Yeah. So a lot of molds, but many cut paths per mold.
Definitely.
It kind of goes back to some of the other stuff that we've talked about. In order to test all of these things, we're also making one of each of these holsters.
Yes, yeah. So just like we were saying about how they're range tested, they're also kind of process or function tested. So every single cut path of every single mold gets made and gets inspected for that type of gun.
Is there a giant bin of things out there?
There are tons of bins, and unfortunately, we have tons of holsters that we have to just get rid of just because.
Check out the eBay store. They're
Yeah.
available on discount. We also need to create, in addition to the tooling, sufficient instructions for all the people who are going to build these holsters next
Yep.
week right after it drops. So, yeah. Is that thing good to go?
Yeah, as part of our pre-production, we'll go through everyone in the shop and they'll sign off on everything from the tooling of each individual process of making it. The hardwares will get our hardware diagram and they're going to look through it and make sure it gets the information that they need. And and then we're ready to be done. So how are your checklists turning out?
I'm working on them.
Yeah.
So there's another pretty significant part of the checklist, which involves preparing stuff for the website. If you haven't seen the T.Rex Arms website and tried to buy a holster there, we have this customizable holster configurator that lets you simulate the different kinds of holsters that you will get. So there's the sidecar one, so you can pick different colors. You can pick different colors of your setup here. You can make it super ugly, or you can be a little more tasteful with your designs. And then as you pick different weapons, you will actually see your holster preview change. And the way that we do that is a little bit tricky. And let's get into how that works here. Because there are a gazillion different variants of holster for the different lengths, the different sizes, the different lights, and then the different colors, I'm actually generating all those in After Effects. And so here is my Raptor setup that I am tweaking right now. So first of all, I got a list here of all the different Kydexes that we support and a few Kydexes that we no longer support. But this has several different frames of different Kydex colors, front and back. So we have our good texture and our good shine. Then we also have the shape of the holster. We got our shorter and longer versions with no light, shorter and longer versions with the different lights. So that gives us our holster shape. And then we've got some shading. The shading on here matches the different lights that we were just looking at before. And you can see some of that Kydex texture coming through. So now if you combine everything together, you get the shape cut out, the shading and the holster color. And then all we got to do is add the clips and the claw to the front there and any extra hardware. So yeah, now we have a 50 frame animation that's going to cover all of this variant. And now I just got to spit out the other 40 or 50 variants and we'll end up with like 1,600 different frames that the website thing can call. So yeah, renders look good. There's actually 1,850, not counting the backer. I need to create a backer that's going to go on the back because there are 3 different lengths of backer for the different heights of holster. So I'll get to work on that in a minute. But the other thing that we need is an instruction manual. All the T.Rex holsters and not just the holsters, the mag carriers as well, get an instruction manual that has instructions on how to assemble, how to maintain, and then also how to adjust the holsters. So we've got those for everything. For that, we don't use After Effects and our fake 2-dimensional thing. We actually do a real 3-dimensional holster so we can render the fancy blueprints, then start to work on the instructions, actually showing people how to add the backer and how to adjust which different screws. So this layout is finished, and it's time to send that over to Emma for a spell check. And also, we should probably make sure that's the right QR code. Website good?
Yeah, that's good.
Nice. All right, Emma, I can see the checklist is already built, and this is not the checklist of stuff that we need. This is actually the checklist for the day.
This is checklist for day of. Checklist for what is still happening is over here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything is running really smoothly, but it won't run really smoothly until tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's going very well. It's kind of all hands on deck this morning, and everybody's finishing up their last few things, so that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So the main thing that you need to get completely flawless right now is the product pages, so people can actually buy the product.
Yep. So we've gone in and I've changed probably 20 small details on this in the last day. So making sure prices are right, making sure that images are all there, making sure that the page is working correctly.
All there, yes.
Making sure that our specs are correct. I just had Josiah from Holster Dev tell me, oh wait, actually I told you something wrong, fix that. And
I was looking at these this morning. They look good to me.
Yeah, got great product photos. Just put in a user manual that you sent me. And just making sure everything's clean, tidy. Got all the information there so that people know what they're buying.
Yeah. So product pages are good, and we will publish those as soon as we launch.
Yes.
And then there's half a dozen other things.
Yes.
Emails need to go out. All the marketing materials need to go up. There's just a bunch of random site stuff that has to be turned on.
Yep. Homepage needs updated. This is a whole new holster line, which means it gets its own category on the product or on the website. And so I got to change menus around and add new photos to the site, things like that. Oh.
Nice. Now this is a kind of a unique holster launch. For your checklist, it's identical to previous holster launches. For other people, we're launching with a slightly different number of molds in the production area.
Very slightly different? How many slightly different?
Well, in terms of orders, a few percent. In terms of molds, 2/3 fewer molds.
Wow, that's a lot less to pick from.
Yeah. So you won't think about that tomorrow. Josiah will probably be thinking only about that.
Yes, yeah. All the 2/3 of molds left to do for him.
And real quickly, it's not just the time that it takes to make these individual molds, it's also the storage space for all of them. And then the more you have, the harder it is to find the right one for a specific order and build that out for the conveyor belt. The more we make, the more holsters we roll out, the more molds we need, etc. Like, it starts becoming a problem. In the past, we would launch a new holster model or a new weapon and a new light as soon as we had the mill for it. Recently, the last probably 4 years, we have waited until we have full model and light support for like the Ironside. We did not launch the Ironside until we had everything built.
Right.
This Raptor launch is going to be a little bit of a hybrid. The more models we support of firearms, the more models we support of lights, the more hundreds of molds that we have to make before we can launch a new product. So we are going to not do full support.
Yeah, so we're gonna start off with not for support. This is always a ongoing conversation for us because the customer experience is extremely important to us.
Yes.
We want to make sure that's as the best as possible. You're always gonna have those outliers of people who are asking for a model that we don't currently support, and it's a ratio of like, do you get, because we think this is a really solid product and we want to get it out there as fast as possible.
Exactly.
So it's, do you support 80% of the market, because Glocks and SIGs and Smith & Wessons are basically 80% of your market. You support 80% of the market to get it there a year earlier, or do you wait and then try and make all of the majority of people wait, just so you can have full support? But we want to make sure everyone has, as much as possible, a competent weapon that they can carry no matter their situation.
Right. Which brings us to where we are now. We're about to launch. We are very close to launching. Okay, so the instruction manuals were delivered while I was in a meeting. I'm sure they're fine. I just want to, look at them, see how they turned out. Yeah. So Christian, how's your checklist coming along? Media marketing stuff, everything needed for Raptor launch. Where are we at?
We are looking pretty good per typical media, internal T.Rex media fashion. It will be done the day before.
Yeah.
So
you got a bunch of different stuff that needs to go up on the website, but as usual, the most complicated thing is probably the most important, the launch video.
Yep. Yeah, so the launch video is still being edited. We spent probably 4 days filming it. It's a pretty chunky video. I mean, it's really for the customer. I mean, they trust us to put out educational material for them, not just products, not just salesy advertising. So it's very important to T.Rex and to T.Rex marketing for the company to make sure we're putting out educational content. And so for the Raptor launch, the video idea is the video that's going up is.
It's pretty audacious.
Yes, it is 6 different micro pistols, all being run out of the new Raptor holster. And Brantley, Brandon, and Lucas are putting, I believe, 2,000 rounds each through each gun. So it was
a lot to shoot, and
a lot to
film,
a lot
and a lot to edit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so, kind of the whole purpose of that video is because micro pistols, smaller frame handguns are becoming more and more popular for everyday carry. T.Rex should definitely have some kind of education on that. We should have some kind of opinion on that matter since it's becoming so popular. And so this was just kind of the perfect opportunity for a video like that, as well as featuring the Raptor holster. And so, yeah.
I think it's a fantastic video concept, but I also know that it's, takes a little longer to edit than this one.
The more content we film, obviously, the harder it is to edit, right? So there's a lot of content filmed, and Michael Tucker is working very hard in the edit right now to crank it out. And so we also have, product videos done. Most of the product page content is done, thanks to Cody. But everything you see on the website for launch, everything you see on social media, everything you see on YouTube, that is all going to kind of come out of this room. And so it is a pretty big list for a launch like this. We have, website assets, we have social media assets, and then we have YouTube. And so there's a lot that goes into it.
And a lot of stuff has gotten done. All the different teams have done their thing, and now for launch day, we are together in the same room to do a whole bunch of stuff, which technically, we could probably do remotely over Teams, but it's more fun to be together and press the button ourselves. Well, it's a lot of buttons. The first thing that has to happen is we've got to get the product page for the Raptor and the Raptor Mono Block live. Now this time there's only 2 products, but sometimes it's an entire suite of things that need to be set up, categories that need to be turned on, links that need to be verified, because sometimes stuff that was tested kind of breaks when you get it onto the main site. And when we're confident that everything is working properly, everybody can see every banner, everybody can see every product link, every category, and everything on the front page has been updated properly, and all the caches have been cleared, and all the cron jobs have been run, and all the behind the scenes stuff is flowing functionally perfectly, and people who are on the site can actually see the new product and occasionally start buying it in the middle of this process. Then we tell other people. And the first thing that we do is we send the newsletter. Our newsletter subscribers hear about our products first, before anybody else. Now, sometimes this isn't a huge advantage. It's only minutes ahead, and usually it doesn't really matter. With holsters, they don't really go out of stock, so whether you buy it at the minute of launch or later in the day, you are gonna get the product. But every now and again, we have limited quantities of stuff, and it is first come, first served, and being on that newsletter matters, so go sign up for that newsletter. And then after every email has been sent to our newsletter list, and sometimes there's wait lists that are corresponding to these things, then and only then do we tell people on social media. So there's a bunch of social media posts that go up in all the various formats that are required, and then the YouTube videos start to get published, sometimes immediately, and sometimes, like in this case, over a couple of days. And since everybody is all in the same room together, we can all make sure that things are functioning properly, and we can see people popping up on the website as they receive the emails and ordering holsters as they find out about the new product launch. And software monitors the entire thing to make sure that there's no glitches. And now the room is empty because the launch is over. It went extremely smoothly, nothing caught on fire. People are ordering the product. CS is back there answering questions. Most of us are supporting the product, but there are people who are working on preparations for the next product launch, which is going to happen sooner than you expect. Products don't usually sit in development quite as long as the Raptor holster has, which means that any day now you can expect to see an announcement for the very hotly anticipated, well, you should sign up for the newsletter, obviously.